Elvis is back, and so are the swingin' 50s, today on The Express. On today's show,
it was a really exciting time in the 1950s in Vancouver. The war was over.
Vancouver in the 1950s.
Yeah, perfect.
Pin-up model perfection.
I grew up watching old movies. I love anything very glamorous. I worshipped Marilyn Monroe growing up.
The 5567 Chevy Club.
There's just no shortage of amazing guitar licks in the 1950s.
Rockabilly band Terminal Station.
The best decade for flashy.
See that and more local expression. Welcome to The Express and the 50s. I'm Johanna Ward at Cafe Planet Java in Fort Langley. We're going totally retro today on the show with 50s dance, cars, music, and fashion. Up first, it's how to get that pin-up photo-worthy 50s glam.
Yeah, perfect.
Virginia Newton-Moss looks like she stepped right out of a 1950s photograph.
I grew up watching old movies. I love anything very glamorous. I worshipped Marilyn Monroe growing up and have always tried to emulate that old Hollywood glamour.
The modern-day pin-up model starts her transformation with hair and makeup.
When I arrived there this morning, we just took the pins out and the curls were all in place.
We're going to do some classic victory rolls with a soft wave in the back. Classic pinup. I'm going to give it a good spray and let it set.
And next, the perfect makeup for a pinup.
Eyebrows shape the face. Very sculpted eyebrows, amazing liquid liner, and then some great false eyelashes and a nice pinky tone on the cheeks and those gorgeous, gorgeous plump red lips.
Open for me.
With the 1940s, 50s sort of makeup, it's very, very matte, pretty, perfect makeup.
Yeah, very, very pin-up.
Yeah.
It's always fun to see this glamorous bombshell walk in and see what she looks like coming in and what she looks like going out.
Just take a seat on the chair. 3/4 angle facing me.
With hair and makeup in place, Virginia adds some classic 50s clothes for her shoot with veteran photographer Shimona Henry.
Lean forward just a tad. With Virginia today, we're going to go through a whole bunch of different poses. We're going to do some just straight up on a backdrop. We're going to pull in a sofa.
She helps me feel confident and sexy, and we have a lot of fun.
Comes out a little bit more.
Virginia has been modeling since she was a teenager, but she specializes in pinup.
Pinup modeling helps me express myself more creatively and can show my personality more than if I was, say, doing mainstream modeling, where you're expected to have a certain look and to go with the trends.
It's about taking it back a step and bringing it back to the classic. It's about the tease.
Pinup photography is all about glamour, but like most professions, it has its challenges.
Something that might look good in a photograph is not necessarily comfortable in real life. Making positions look very natural and comfortable when they aren't necessarily.
The pictures are beautiful, or as they'd say in the 50s, Virginia's a real doll. I'm Bianca Solterbeck in Vancouver for The Express. If you'd like to be a pinup model for a day, photographer Shimona Henry does pinup parties. It includes wardrobe, props, and a photo session for you and some friends. And if you want to get a bit more serious with it, there's also the bombshell or the vixen packages. Now, obviously, style was important in the 50s, but what else was topical? We headed to the Museum of Vancouver to find out what was happening in the city in the 1950s, and we found some pretty familiar topics.
The 1950s were an optimistic time in Vancouver. There was a lot of energy, there's bright lights. Literally, the lights came on again with the neon on Granville Street. And there was a sense that modest prosperity was within people's grasp. And the downtown was particularly a gathering place. You'd go downtown to eat, to dance, to go to the movies.
Movies a little bit cheaper back then.
Yes, much cheaper. Mind you, you weren't making much babysitting either.
I guess that's true. What a student gets in for 50 cents anytime. And you're not kidding when you say the cars were big. I drive a Yaris, so it's like, I mean, there's the difference, right? The 50s to now, it's like half the size and half the fuel efficiency.
Between the end of the war, 1945, and 1955, the number of cars in Vancouver doubled.
I feel like we should have like tunes rocking and then maybe like someone on roller skates sliding up to serve us burgers.
That's right, absolutely. And a wonderful bench seat.
Oh yeah.
Ideal for necking.
Oh, meow. Is that allowed in the 50s?
I think whether it was allowed or not, I'm pretty sure it happened. Yeah. The other thing Vancouver had to do is it had to decide whether or not it was going to, I suppose, give its heart to the car, and that meant the decision of whether or not to keep the street cars. The city began ripping tracks up in neighborhood after neighborhood, something which we now consider with chagrin. There's a tremendous housing shortage in Vancouver during and after the war. Fraserview was designed as a special neighborhood just after the war for veterans and their families.
It's got a very Leave It to Beaver feel to all of it too, hey?
Yes,
So I guess that would be the time frame.
Yes, yes, absolutely.
Interesting then to look back at the 1950s to now. Some of the major concerns: housing, transportation and traffic, and the
Having
downtown.
a good time.
Yeah, and having a good time. It's all the same.
The issues are the same. The way they get played out is different, of course.
The 50s Gallery is one of the permanent exhibits at the Museum of Vancouver, and Joan said it was not easy getting that big old car into such a compact space. Now, speaking of cars, up next on the Express, we're cruising to Coquitlam to meet the 5567 Chevy Club in one of their favorite spots, the garage.
It's a scene played out in garages across North America. Car lovers tinkering with their objects of affection. In many cases, these objects are older than they are.
This is Brad's 1957 Chevy station wagon. It has the original engine. He's done some minor upgrades to it to make it more reliable.
Dave, Brad, and Roman are members of the 5567 Chevy Club. Their passion is restoring and driving 1950s Chevys.
We have about 25 members, and some of the and men and women both. Doesn't matter who you are. If you're a fan of the cars, you really like to go out and drive around in them. And we attend a lot of shows as a group. It's great bonding time. It's a great time just to get away from the everyday stuff and to go out and hang out and talk about things that are going on in the car world or making plans for future trips.
A group of them goes down every year to Portland, and often they come back with more than they planned.
Lots of things not here. This is actually really good condition for this year and for a barn find, so to speak. One of the most sought after collectible cars.
It's a hobby that takes up a lot of time, a lot of room, and probably a good dose of cash. So why do they do it?
There's so much room. It's a lot simpler. Not the great amount of electronics on the cars now, as of today, but they're certainly comfortable to drive in. There's so much flash and chrome. They just look like they're a really well-designed car, and they just have that appeal, that age of cars, and they're just the classics.
And when you see one of these cars on the road, most of us can't help but see the appeal. I'm Erin Shaw in Coquitlam for The Express.
The 5567 guys and gals really ramp it up in the summertime. But even if you don't have a vintage car, new members are always welcome. And if you are into old cars, you also might want to check out Classic Alley at the Vancouver Auto Show, happening March 29th through April 3rd. Now you're watching our Express Retro Special. We have a whole different kind of moving up next. After the break,
a lot of these tunes have struck a chord with people so that they last. They've lasted for 50 or...
rockin' out to rockabilly.
There's just something about that music that people can relate to.
A little jump, jive, and wail. You're watching local TV on The Express.
Community programming on Shaw has been generously sponsored in part by...
The Express is brought to you in part by Plum, fashion supplier to host Johanna Ward.